3 spine-chilling true tales of sinister home intrusions that expose terrifying secrets. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every night, as she tucked her 2 children into their beds, the walls seemed to whisper secrets too sinister to comprehend. They turned her home into a waking nightmare. The unsettling whispers, growing louder each evening, wrapped around her like a choking fog, rattling her nerves until she could hardly breathe. Shadows in the corners danced, taunting her with their sinister promise. Something was lurking, waiting for her to let her guard down. It was a quiet suburb of Chicago, a picture-perfect neighborhood draped in a facade of safety. Children laughed outside, families barbecued, the aroma of grilled burgers wafting through the air. But Laura could feel the threads of a darker tapestry being woven around her modest 3-bedroom home. There was Mr. Thompson next door, a retired police officer with a keen eye and an even keener gaze that seemed to pierce through her very soul. He stood framed at the window, shifting ever so slightly as he watched, his expression a mix of intrigue and something she couldn't quite pin down. Contempt? Need? Laura's pulse quickened every time their gazes met. Then it happened a random afternoon as she sorted through the mail, and an anonymous letter slipped from an envelope, fluttering to the ground like a dead leaf. She could hardly have prepared for this. Its contents froze her blood, unsettling details about the neighborhood's history, cryptic allusions to disappearances and hidden horrors lurking behind the manicured facades. Even the smiles exchanged across the white picket fences felt tainted, each whisper through the walls hammering at her mind, the dread creeping back in. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Every night, strange occurrences began invading her home. Lily's beloved teddy bear vanished, only to return after weeks, filthy and soaked as if it had endured untold horrors. Toys inexplicably shuffled from one room to another, and the family photo frame had a way of tilting, while whispers swirled in sinister harmony, relentless. Her children, just as fragile and innocent as they seemed, caught glimpses of shadows flitting past the windows, their eyes wide with terror, convinced there was something out there from beyond. Nights turned into restless attacks of pure panic. The urge to protect her children surged within her, tightening her throat and constricting her heart. And then came the night of the confrontation. Trembling, fueled by a mix of courage and sheer desperation, she approached Mr. Thompson's door, each step resonating against the hollow shell of her imagination. The air grew thick as she knocked, desperation gnawing at her insides. What she uncovered behind his door wasn't the friendly old man she thought she knew, it was a twisted truth that threatened to unravel her entire existence. That sly glint in his eyes untangled a web of terror connecting him to the neighborhood's dark past, a shadowy figure hiding in plain sight. As the door cracked open, revealing the warmth of his home contrasted with her chilling dread, a gust of wind swept through the hallway, ushering in an ominous chill. The whispers grew louder, unbearable, as Laura realized the nightmare wasn't outside, it was already inside her home, echoing in every corner. Would she escape this waking horror? Or was she already lost in its grip? The door swung open, and Laura's heart dropped. Mr. Thompson stood there, a shadow of a smile on his lips, but his eyes cold and calculating held a world of secrets she was not ready to face. He stepped back, motioning her to enter with a slow, deliberate gesture, the kind that felt more like an invitation to hell than a friendly welcome. "Please, come in, Laura," he said, his voice smooth yet laced with an unsettling edge. "You wanted to talk, didn't you?" She hesitated, caught in the grip of his gaze, the oppressive air clinging to her skin. Was he trying to draw her into his snare? With each passing moment, the whispers coiled tighter around her, wrapping her in dread. She began, but the words caught like shards of glass in her throat. Instead, she stepped inside, pushing through the threshold with a force that felt unnatural. The moment she crossed the doorframe, a cold shiver cascaded down her spine. The interior was dimly lit, shadows seeming to pulse along the walls. They were adorned with photographs, images of families, children playing, a bright Christmas morning, but there was something off about them. She squinted, and dread washed over her as she recognized some faces from the neighborhood. Faces that were all too familiar but tinged with a sense of unease. Their smiles felt like masks, hiding deeper truths. "What do you know about this place?" she asked, forcing her voice to remain steady. Mr. Thompson laughed softly, the sound sending a chill through her bones. "Oh, more than you could imagine, Laura. This neighborhood, it has stories. Dark stories." He stepped closer, each movement deliberate, as if he were scrutinizing her very essence. "You think you're the only one who hears the whispers? You think your children are safe?" Her heart raced. What did he know? What had he seen? Their SA history we're not supposed to uncover. People disappear, Laura. Just vanish without a trace. And those who know well, they end up like the shadows. Silent. Forgotten. Each word pierced her like needles, thoughts racing through her mind. Her children, Lily, and Jake. Were they truly safe? The shadows around her felt thicker now, crowding in close, the air growing heavier. "Please," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to know what you're hiding. I need to protect them." Mr. Thompson's expression shifted, crossing into something darker and more predatory. "The truth is dangerous, my dear. Sometimes ignorance is the only way to truly stay safe." Before she could respond, a loud crash erupted from the back of his home, a noise so primal and raw it peeled the veneer off her composure. They both turned toward the sound, an instinctive fear coursing through her. In that moment, the house felt alive, pulsating with its own sinister heartbeat. "Stay here," Thompson commanded, but the authority in his tone only fueled her panic. Her instincts screamed at her to flee. But the formula of horror had already been set. Just like that, her life turned into a waking nightmare. As Laura backed away, a gut-wrenching realization struck her: this was no longer just about her home. Something terrible was awakening, and she was trapped in its web. He moved toward the noise, but she couldn't stay silent. "What was that?" she whispered, a fragile tremor in her voice. He paused, looking back at her, his eyes glinting with something unsettling. "You have no idea what you're asking for, Laura." Just then, lights flickered above, and the whispers inside her head reached a deafening crescendo, drowning out everything else. She turned to run back outside, but the way was consumed by shadows, swallowing her hope. Where were her children? What unspeakable truths lingered in this neighborhood? And as she stumbled back, the thought hit her: the doors would close, the walls would hold, but what if the terror within was even closer than she imagined? Now, it felt like a race against something far greater. Something that was waiting for her to make one fatal mistake. What awaited her in the shadows that hugged her home? The shadows seemed to pulse, twisting into grotesque shapes that danced around her. Panic sank deeper into her chest, constricting with every breath. She felt like prey caught in a predator's gaze, suffocated by the ominous atmosphere that thickened with each heartbeat. "Laura, wait." Thompson's voice cut through the haze, but it felt more like a command than an appeal. Her instincts screamed to escape, to break free from this suffocating grip. But the door she had entered felt like a prison now, its frame pulsing like the walls around her. She turned slowly, scanning the dimly lit room, every corner cocooned in shadows, every sound magnified, shards of broken glass glinting beneath the flickering light. That crash, it echoed again, mingling with the whispers that now felt like a frantic chant, wrapping around her thoughts, urging her to flee. No more questions, just run. Yet, she stood rooted, fear clashing with a need to know. What happened back there? Her voice trembled, a whisper that seemed to dissolve into the unfriendly air. "What's in your house, Mr. Thompson?" He laughed, but this time it felt sharp, almost cruel. "Do you really want to know?" His eyes gleamed with a twisted kind of excitement. With a quick side glance, she caught a glimpse of something moving in the shadows, a slip of white, barely discernible. Her heart raced as she squinted into the darkness. What was that? You should leave, Laura, he replied, stepping toward her, closer than she'd like, the scent of damp earth and something else rotting, pungent swirling around him, clinging to the very essence of the house. You don't want to know what's hidden away. But just the thought of turning around and walking out that door felt like facing a great unknown. The crash rang out again, more insistent, more alive than before. With one sudden motion, Laura surged forward, almost colliding with him. I will protect my children. You have to tell me. Mr. Thompson's smile faded. Very well, then. But understand this, some things should remain buried. He turned, leading her deeper into the house. Each step felt like stepping off a precipice. Shadows flitted just out of sight, brushing against her shoulders like cold fingers. Suddenly, they entered a small room. The air turned bitterly cold, and she shivered as she stepped inside. The walls here were lined with shelves, crammed with strange artifacts that smelled of dust and despair. Framed newspaper clippings caught the flickering light, headlines writhing against the walls like snakes. Missing persons. Accidents. Tragedy. Then her eyes landed on a large, dusty mirror in the corner, a jagged crack running down its center. It was almost alive, reflecting somewhat of an unholy essence. The surface shimmered darkly, almost taunting. Do you see it? Thompson asked, his voice now dangerously soft, insidious. Whatever you run from, it finds you. Her heart raced, realization lancing through her. This wasn't just about her home or neighbors. This was about something far more primal, lurking beneath the surface, waiting to consume everything. A low whisper echoed suddenly, more pronounced, closer, as if it seeped from the very walls. Her breath quickened, and she turned back toward Thompson. What did you do? Before she could process his reply, the shadows around her twitched violently, almost alive, and the mirror shimmered once more, showing her a face that wasn't her own, twisted in fear, hollowed by despair. With a surge of instinct, Laura darted towards the door, but her vision blurred as the whispers turned desperate, clawing at her sanity. Get out! Something shrieked faintly. You don't belong here. But it wasn't just her own horror that pressed against her mind, it was the weight of countless souls trapped in that place. As she slammed the door behind her, the sound shattered the stillness like glass breaking, and she fled into the darkness outside, gasping, adrenaline fueling her desperate escape, but as she crossed the threshold, hope flickered against the night sky, and a new wave of terror washed over her. What had she unleashed? What horrors lay ahead, and who would be left in the shadows while she ran, through the darkened streets, each step echoing like a drumbeat of dread? She wondered about the true cost of knowledge. As she turned a corner, one question hung over her like the heavy air itself: where were Lily and Jake? Were they safe, or did the darkness stretch to claim them too? Laura ran, her feet pounding against the pavement, heart racing wildly. Where were they? The question wrapped around her mind, tightening like a noose. Each creak of the old houses on her street felt like a taunt, a reminder of the encroaching darkness that had reached out to claim her. Shadows slipped along the edges of her vision, whispering fears that kept her eyes darting side to side. She needed a plan, but the chaotic thrum of panic drowned out any rational thought. She stopped at the corner, forcing herself to breathe. The moon hung high, lighting the streets with an eerie glow. Could she really return to that house? What if Mr. Thompson knew something? What if he had already reached her children? A flicker of movement caught her eye, a flash of white near the park entrance. A chill crawled down her spine. Had she really seen it? Or was it a trick of the light? The darkness had a way of twisting reality, stretching shadows into shapes that loomed larger than life. Gathering what little courage she had left, Laura moved toward the park. Her hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone, struggling to remember how to dial. It felt like the world was pushing against her, a relentless force urging her not to reach out, to keep silent. But she wouldn't. She couldn't. With each step, the park unveiled its mysteries, an empty swing swaying slightly, leaves rustling like a soft chorus of warning. She glanced at the swings again, and for a moment, she swore she saw Lily and Jake laughing there, swinging high into the night sky. Laura, a whisper beckoned. She spun around, heart racing. Hello? Her voice was a mere tremor, swallowed by the thickening dark. No answer, just the whispering leaves and a sense that she was undeniably being watched. But then, the movement returned. Glimmers of white flickered in the bushes, taunting her. Desperation clawed at her throat. Was it them? Lily. Jake. She shouted, her voice splintering through the silence. Mom. The reply came, distant and oddly echoing. The sound threaded through the trees like a melody dipped in sorrow. She rushed toward the sound, each step heavier than the last. A gnawing dread twisted in her gut. As she reached the edge of the park, she saw the light, a soft glow emanating from a clearing beyond the trees. It pulsed gently, inviting yet menacing, and her instinct screamed to turn away. No. She had to know. With shaking hands, she stepped into the eerie illumination. The shadows danced around her, lurid shapes that held their breath. And there they were. Lily and Jake stood in the center, illuminated by the light, faces vacant and eyes staring blankly into nothingness. Mommy. Jake's voice came out as a whisper, a thread of joy built on a gaping void. Mom. We were waiting for you. Lily added, her smile wide but unsettling. Laura's heart dropped. This was wrong. She could feel it. What are you doing here? The words tumbled out, trembling on her lips. We wanted to play. Lily said, her voice morphing into something layered with hidden dangers. Panic surged through Laura like ice water. Something was off, and she realized it too late. The glow around them flickered and darkened, inviting more shadows to creep in. Come closer, Mommy, the children called, voices twisting, merging into a cacophony that rose like steam. She stepped backward, fear racing as she fought against the grip of the darkness inching ever closer. Let us go home. She cried, but the light flickered violently, and the children's smiles sank into twisted grins. For a moment, fear clawed at her throat, and she turned to run, back through the deepening shadows of the park, away from the sinister light, away from their beckoning. But as she ran, the whispering surged around her again, a dreadful chant that echoed every step. Where would she go? In her mind, the edges of reality blurred, shadows pulling at her. You can't escape, Laura, they seemed to say. Then something grabbed her ankle, hard. She stumbled, the ground beneath her giving way to terror. It felt like the darkness opened its mouth, ready to consume her whole, and she realized, once more, she had stepped too far into the abyss. Behind her, the children's laughter rang out, pure and wrong, echoing in the gloom. And then, just before the abyss swallowed her whole, she thought of one last desperate gamble. I will find you. She screamed into the void, voice breaking. But would that be enough to save her children? Would she be able to face whatever evil lurked in the shadows? The uncertainty wrapped around her like a shroud as she vanished into the depths of the night. What awaited her when she finally emerged? The answer clung heavily in the air, poised to draw her closer into the dread still lurking in the shadows. The weight of darkness enveloped Laura as she fell, the ground hitting her like a shocking breath. Instinct kicked in, and she scrambled to her feet, heart racing against the pounding dread in her ears. The laughter echoed again, chilling and haunting. Shadows flitted just beyond the edges of her vision, beckoning her back, luring her toward that menacing glow where her children used to be. Mommy. The call was stronger now, almost urgent, twisting her insides into knots. She turned on her heel and ran, each frantic step pulling her deeper into the park's clutches, where the trees appeared to close in, forming a dark maze that conspired against her escape. Hold on. I'm coming. Her voice cracked, desperation pouring from her throat. But what if it wasn't them? Her mind spiraled into chaos. What if those weren't her children standing in the light, but something else entirely, hollow replicas driven by shadows? The laughter rang in her head, an agonizing melody that distorted reality. Her breath quickened as she darted toward the park's exit, where the light of the street lamps flickered dimly in the distance like a false promise. A rustle in the trees startled her, followed by a hushed voice, one not from the children. "Stay with us." It was Mr. Thompson, his lingering presence becoming a dark specter looming at the back of her mind. Was he behind all this? Was he the puppet master pulling the strings, leading her to this spiral of despair? No. She shouted defiantly, though the sound felt small against the cacophony of whispers now surrounding her. "You can't have me." The ground shuddered as she sprinted forward, branches snagging at her clothes, pulling her back into their grasp as if nature itself conspired with him. Just a few more feet to the park entrance. She could do this. She had to. But as she neared the border of familiar territory, a flash of movement caught her eye. It was a figure cloaked in darkness, face shrouded. The tall silhouette moved with an unnatural grace, blocking her way. Heart in her throat, she skidded to a stop. "Let me through!" she screamed, voice trembling with a mix of fear and fury. "Why do you want to leave?" he asked, voice smooth but carrying a sinister undertone that sent chills through her. "They're waiting for you, know. You can't take me back." She clutched at her chest, panic coursing through her veins. The figure stepped closer, the strings of darkness shifting around him like oil in water. "It's not for them that you fear, it's for yourself. You know the truth." With a sudden burst of clarity, the last few days and fleeting memory struck her like a thunderbolt. Fragments of the past, the whispers of regret, the forgotten moments tinged with sorrow. "Stop!" she shouted, voice breaking against the rising tide of oppressive shadow. "Let me go." But they wouldn't let her escape that easily. She felt invisible hands latching onto her, realms of darkness stretching wide to devour her resolve. The whispers morphed into a chant, an agonizing reminder of all she had lost. The imagery of her children dissolved into mockery, twisted faces that laughed and wept all at once. "I want to let you have them," she cried out, finally breaking through the shrouded modifiers of her own nightmares. Suddenly, the world tilted. She stumbled sideways, and terror ignited as the park walls shifted, trees closing in faster. The grip around her tightened, a raw desperation clawing at her lungs. In a moment of reckoning, she pushed back against the encroaching mass, forcing its grip to release. She lunged forward, bursting free into the night air just as the darkness roared behind her. The streetlights flickered and her eyes stung from the sudden brightness. Breathing heavy, she stumbled onto the pavement, unsure if she was truly free or if the shadows would follow her. But in that moment, she felt something shift. A nagging doubt now loomed larger. Had she truly escaped? Or were they merely biding their time? As Laura turned to look back into the abyss, the laughter echoed one last time, a chilling reminder that the night was far from over. "Help us!" Her children's voices rang, sweet but laced with a predator's hunger. In the deepening night, under the ghostly glow of the street lamp, a new wave of dread washed over her. If she didn't find the children, would they slip away forever? Or worse, become something ominous that lurked in the dark? The urgency swelled inside her as she sprinted toward home, fear driving her forward and burdening her soul. What awaited her when she returned? A doorway to horror or a path toward salvation? Questions swirled like autumn leaves in a storm. Would she uncover a truth painted in despair, or was there a deeper malignancy entwined in their fate? Only time would tell, and time was running out. Laura's body felt heavy as dread pulled at her from behind. The laughter lingered in her ears, a chilling symphony that haunted each breath. She couldn't shake the conviction that the darkness hadn't finished with her. Each light flickering above her cast long shadows that seemed to writhe and twist, mocking her every step. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the demands of her panicked mind. What were those voices? Were they real? She stumbled forward, each rush of wind carrying the scent of the damp earth and decay, filling her with unease. She twisted the key in the front door, the clink of metal echoing like a gunshot in the suffocating silence. "Mommy?" A voice echoed from inside, but it wasn't like her children's. It was tainted, distorted. "No!" Laura screamed, hurling the door open. She stood there in the threshold, the world outside dark and the house ahead gloomy and unwelcoming. Rushing in, she called out again, "Kids!" The house was dark as a tomb, silence filled every crevice. A cold draft swept around her ankles, whispering through the halls like secrets better left untold. She moved through the shadows, her fingers trembling against the walls as if they might offer some guidance. "Mommy!" Came the voice again, a sing-song mocking that resonated within her chest. "Where are you?" she cried, echoing desperation as she bounded down the hallway, feeling the air grow heavier around her. She stopped in front of the living room. Was that movement? It flickered, a shadow darting just out of reach. Something or someone was watching. A chill crept up her spine. No one else should be here. The laughter from the park morphed into guttural chortles, a raucous sound that reverberated from somewhere deep within the house. The laughter of children turned grotesque. And then she saw it, a figure shrouded in darkness, crouched low and watching from the corner. "Mommy," it whispered, pitch shifting eerily, blending innocence with something entirely sinister. "No." She stepped back, her pulse racing. It couldn't be them. She stumbled against a chair, nearly falling. "Come play with us." Laura shook her head, disbelief mingling with fear. "You're not real." Suddenly, another figure emerged from the shadows, this one moving more naturally, its face hidden in the dim light, masked like some ghastly apparition. The two figures drew closer, their shapes flickering in and out like dying bulbs. "Mommy, help us," their voices dripped with both sweetness and malice. Drawing on memories of her children, she tightened her fists. "No. You're not them." The air around her thickened, the shadows tightening like a noose. She took a shaky step back, then turned and sprinted toward the staircase. The laughter grew louder, morphing into shrieks, chilling her to her core. "Let us in, Mommy!" they cried, now sounding almost pleading, but something deep inside her warned that pleas could morph into screams. That these weren't her children, but something born of her nightmares. At the top of the stairs, Laura glanced back, her heart thumping like a hammer. It was just a safe little space between her and whatever horror lurked below. But it felt alive. No longer a refuge, the second floor was an unwilling prison, every room a potential hiding place for dark secrets. The bedroom door loomed in front of her, a threshold to the life untouched by fear. She flung it open, and the sight inside froze her heart. Toys strewn across the floor, clothes piled high just as they left it. But something was off. The closet door cracked open, a sliver of darkness yawning wide, beckoning her closer. She stepped cautiously, breath held tight in her chest, wanting to scream but unable to voice the dread welling up inside. A shadow shifted inside the closet. "Mommy!" The reflection of two small figures emerged, glistening eyes reflecting light like that of a predator poised to hunt. "We've been waiting for you." In that moment, realization sank in like a stone, heavy and unsettling. She staggered back as the darkness pooled around her feet, inching closer, crawling up her legs. Had she really escaped, or had she merely returned to the den of horrors she sought to flee? The silence thickened, broken only by the soft, insistent whispers growing louder. "Help us!" And before her stood the doorway to the unknown, each step forward now an uncertainty. Would they pull her back into despair? Or was this the moment to finally confront the darkness that threatened to consume everything she held dear? As the door creaked open wider in response, she knew she was running out of time. What awaited her on the other side? Would the truth bring release, or would it seal her fate forever? A chill raked its fingers down Laura's spine as the closet door opened wider. The blackness inside shifted, thick like smoke, swirling with a life of its own. She forced herself to breathe, but every inhale felt like shards of ice cutting through her lungs. The gleaming eyes of the figures inside sparkled with a predatory gleam, unsettling and hungry. "Mommy," they whispered again, a twisted echo that pulled at her very essence. She wanted to reach out, to wrap her arms around her children, but the dread weighing her down was suffocating. The shadows cocooning her legs tightened, and she clenched her fists, trying to shake the sensation. A part of her screamed to run, another part yearned to understand what twisted reality this was. She whispered, "What do you want?" The figures stepped forward, their movements fluid and unsettling. They emerged partially into the light, revealing face shapes that were too familiar yet disfigured enough to strike terror in her heart. "We're scared, Mommy," said one, voice sweet like caramel yet laced with venom. "Help us come play," the other chimed in, its tone slipping from innocent to menacing in the span of a breath. "No." She forced the word out, feeling the desperation clawing at her throat. She spun on her heel, feeling as if every corner of the house was converging on her, curling inwards like an animal ready to pounce. The laughter echoed louder now, bouncing off the walls. She raced down the hallway, heart thundering as her bare feet hit the cold wooden floor. The kitchen door stood ajar, the faint light of the moon spilling in through the windows, casting eerie silhouettes. Perhaps the outside world held some semblance of safety. As she reached for the door, it swung shut on its own. She gasped, yanking her hand back. Panic clawed at her, and every instinct screamed to crawl back into the shadows, where the figures couldn't touch her, though she knew they would find her eventually. "Mommy, don't leave us." The voices rang out again, this time layered with what sounded like laughter, a cacophony of wrongness. Laura turned, bolting toward the stairs again. "I need to get out. I have to leave." Each step resonated with the weight of impending doom. The house held secrets she wasn't ready to unravel, but the fear of her children's distorted images kept her pushing forward. At the top of the stairs, shadows danced wickedly, teasing her vantage point. She could hear the unmistakable sound of tiny feet scuttling about, their quick movements like spiders weaving webs of despair. She rushed to the hallway window, flinging it open, the cool night air rushing in like a gust of sanity. But in that moment of hope, she felt the pulse of the house wrap around her like a serpent. A soft pressure against her ankle, and she looked down to find ghostly hands clawing at her, pulling her back into darkness. "Come on, Mommy. Join us." They cajoled playfully, a diabolical invitation. Fear slapped her awake, and with a sudden strength, Laura tore away and sprinted down the hallway. The figures melted into the walls, but their whispers followed her, taunting her every step. She reached the final door at the end of the corridor, a door she never thought would be her escape. "Open it. Come see." They sang, a melody drenched in darkness. It felt like madness, but as she clutched the doorknob, she hesitated. What lay beyond? Freedom, horror, or perhaps her final descent into chaos? The shadows roared, shaking the house around her. "Help us please," they pleaded one last time, the voices now weaving into a sorrowful chant. With her heart pounding and breaths shallow, she knew all too well that she was moments away from either unlocking fate or sealing her doom. Could she confront whatever awaited her on the other side? Or had she already lost in more ways than one? Her fingers trembled as she twisted the knob. The knob turned with a dreadful creak, and the door swung open, revealing a darkened room that seemed to stretch infinitely beyond. Clusters of shadows writhed and twisted, as if alive, ready to engulf her. She stepped forward, feeling the air turn thick and oppressive, wrapping around her like a shroud. "Mommy, please." The voices echoed in her mind, melding with the whispers of the room, creating a dissonant symphony that sent her heart racing. The darkness beckoned her deeper, promising answers she was too terrified to seek, but she could already sense the weight of regret pressing down on her. Suddenly, a cough from behind jolted her, breaking her trance. Laura turned and found herself staring into a pair of pale, luminous eyes, her heart hammering against her ribs. It was one of them, but this one seemed different. The figure shuddered, as if caught between realms. "Help me!" it rasped, voice cracking with despair. They won. Stop. You have to. Before it could finish, the shadows shifted violently, ripping the figure away as if it were a mere reflection in a disturbed pool of water. The wailing crescendoed, a chorus of anguish consuming her senses. She slammed the door shut, panting as if oxygen were poison. "Where do you think you're going?" The question hung in the air, thick with malice. It was a new voice, deep and resonant, reverberating through the walls. Laura felt the chills seep into her bones. Whirling around, she saw the features of a tall figure emerge slowly from the darkness. Its body loomed large, shrouded in gloom, but it was the piercing gaze that gripped her soul. "What do you want?" she shouted, bravado slipping away. "What do you want with my children?" "They are ours now," it replied, voice dripping with wicked delight. "You shouldn't have come back. You shouldn't have left them." The walls trembled, and the floorboards beneath her groaned, alive with the weight of unseen burdens. Confusion clouded her mind. Had she really left them? Or had they always been here, trapped, abandoned by her own fears? "You think you can run?" it laughed, a low, rumbling sound that shook her to her core. "You're just like them, running away from your fears, ignoring the truth." Taking a step back, she questioned herself. Were they memories of her children? Or nightmares conjured by this wicked house? The line between reality and nightmare blurred, and all she could hear was the sound of little feet scurrying again, taunting her. Sprinting back to the stairs, Laura's heart raced faster as she felt the floor shift beneath her. She stumbled, gripping the banister, but a hand shot out from the shadows, gripping her wrist. The cold touch felt like death wrapping around her. "Mommy, we miss you." The words hit her like a punch to the gut, truth cutting through the fog of horror surrounding her. She was paralyzed, waist deep in anguish, grappling with the guilt of decisions long past. Desperation clawed at her throat. This isn't real. It can't be real. She gasped. The laughter exploded again, and with a fierce determination, she jerked her arm free. She knew she had to escape, but her instincts waged war against her personal demons. Was she truly running from them or running back into their arms? As she stumbled down the hallway, a door swung wider next to her, a door she never even noticed before. The light that spilled forth was warm and comforting, a beacon amidst the chaos. Temptation wrapped around her, softening her resolve. In that moment of hesitation, she realized, to find her children, she had to dive into the abyss of her own despair. With horror clawing at her mind and the shadow of the figure watching her every move, Laura turned towards the new door, knowing full well it could lead to salvation or her ultimate doom. What awaited her on the other side? Would it be the fractured pieces of her heart or something far worse? With one last breath, she stepped into the light, not knowing if she would ever return. The warmth overwhelmed her at first, an inviting embrace that felt like hope after being clutched by the icy grip of dread. As Laura stepped through the doorway, she braced herself for a transition into safety, but what she found was far from comforting. The light surrounded her like a cocoon and faded quickly, localizing to a spotlight on weathered wallpaper peeling and curling at the edges. The room was oddly familiar, yet stretched like a nightmare version of her own home, a distorted mirror reflecting echoes of her past. In the center stood a table, draped in a white cloth that gleamed in the half-light. "Mommy?" The single voice stopped her cold, and she knew without question, it was one of her children. Panic flared again, igniting every nerve within her. She struggled to remember the way back, but the doorway had vanished, leaving only the oppressive silence that reverberated in the corners of the room. "Where are you?" she called out, trying to mask the crack in her voice. "Show yourself. What's wrong with you? Are you scared?" A second voice chimed in, dripping with mockery. The sound burrowed into her brain like a parasite. Then, two shadowy figures emerged from the gloom, their edges undefined. They laughed softly at first, then growing louder and more unhinged. She squinted, desperately needing to see them, to know if they were real or figments of her broken mind. As they stepped into view, her heart ached. "Why did you leave us?" the first child echoed, eyes wide yet hollow like empty wells. "You could have saved us." "No, I was trying," she tore at her own words, anguish threatening to spill over. "Was it too hard for you? To keep us safe?" The second mocked, a malicious grin swirling around its features. "You ran away. We were here, waiting." Before Laura could respond, the table began to shake, rattling as if possessed. The cloth rose like a wave, revealing countless objects underneath, framed photographs, wilted flowers, and an assortment of broken toys. The memories washed over her, drowning her in sorrow. "Look! It's all the love you left behind." The children pointed, the smiles twisted and sharp, like shards of glass. She recognized them all, their laughter, their cries. The specters twisted her reality into a nightmare she couldn't escape. "You abandoned us for your own life." They cried in unison, their voices weaving a haunting chorus. "No. I did it to protect you. I thought I was giving you a chance." Laura's words faltered as doubt seeped in. Maybe they were right. Maybe she had chosen her own comfort over their safety, trusting she'd come back in time. Suddenly, the room fell silent. The shadows coalesced, gathering to form a singular, ominous figure just behind the children. It towered over her, cloaked in darkness, the same entity she had seen before. "The truth hurts," it hissed, voice reverberating like thunder. But this is only the beginning. With a flick of its wrist, the figures dissolved into wisps of shadows, leaving her staggering against the now empty table. Heart racing, she felt the familiar pull of despair creeping back in. The walls began to close in as the darkness advanced, threatening to reclaim her. Desperation clawed at her throat. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The figure stepped closer, its breath cold against her skin. "To face what you've buried. To confront what you fear most." And with that, the shadows unfurled like smoke, revealing yet another door, a heavy, ancient barrier that seemed to pulsate with dark energy. Laura's gaze snapped to it, instinctively aware that whatever lay beyond could very well shatter her already fragile psyche. With trembling hands, she reached for the handle, her worst fears intertwining with her deepest desires for reunion. What awaited her on the other side? Would it be the broken pieces of her past, or the final descent into the madness that had been stalking her all along? As the door creaked open, Laura felt her heart race faster, each pulse echoing with uncertainty. She took a step inside, not knowing if she would ever find her way back. The door creaked open, revealing a room thick with shadows and echoes of her past. An oppressive silence clung to the air, heavy with memories that danced just beyond the edge of comprehension. Laura stepped inside, feeling as if the floorboards themselves groaned in recognition, whispering secrets of old, long-buried fears. "Mommy?" The voice broke through the silence, sweet yet sorrowful, and Laura's heart leaped. It was Lily's voice. Her mind flickered with hope. Could this be her chance to reclaim her children? "Where are you?" she called out, but the shadows seemed to twist in response, holding answers just outside her reach. "Why did you leave us?" Jake's familiar tone resonated, yet distanced, as if spoken through a veil that separated reality from a nightmarish reflection. Laura felt her heart constrict, guilt seeping into her very soul. She stepped forward, yearning to see her children, to reassure them. "I'm here. I came back." But all she found were dark forms coalescing, their features shifting like smoke. "Help us." The whispers echoed, chilling her to the core. The room around her pulsed with energy, shadows writhing as if alive, rekindling memories she had tried to forget. Suddenly, they emerged, flanking one another, yet their faces were twisted, a grotesque version of the innocence she remembered. "Where were you, Mommy?" they chorused, their voices raised in an eerie harmony, mocking her despair. Each syllable cut deeper, the air heavy with unspoken resentment. I was scared. Laura's voice cracked, desperation spilling over. Memories of their laughter turned to a haunting echo of pain, each moment replaying like a confession she couldn't escape. I thought you were safe. They were never safe. The figure that had loomed earlier stepped from the depths of shadow, confidence exuding from its presence. You abandoned them for your own comfort. You hid from the truth, and now the truth demands its due. Laura's gaze fell to the floor, where shadows danced like memories' wilted flowers, broken toys, remnants of laughter now twisted into cries of sadness. Her heart sank. What had she done? Maybe by running, she hadn't just protected them, she sentenced them. No! She shouted defiantly, forcing herself to look up, fighting against the pulling weight of despair. I came back for you. You don't know what I went through. I thought I was doing the right thing. You were wrong. The figure's voice resonated, reverberating through her very bones, drowning her in a wave of inevitable realization. They are waiting for you to face your fears, Laura. Or you will lose them forever. With newfound clarity cutting through the fog of desperation, Laura took a hesitant step toward her children. I will not abandon you again. Finding strength she didn't know she had, she whispered, show me, help me understand how to bring you back. The shadows flared, brightening for the briefest moment, allowing her a glimpse of their faces unfiltered, pleading. We're scared, Lily said, her eyes reflecting a hollow ache, and Laura felt her heart shatter a little more. You have to face what you run from. Laura nodded slowly, determination blooming amid the shadows. I'm ready. Show me. Suddenly, the room shifted, forming a hallway thick with darkness. You can't hide. Came the echoing taunt as if the room itself conspired against her. But with each step, she felt lighter, as if shedding chains she hadn't even known weighed her down. Moving forward, the shadows swirled, revealing fragmented glimpses of memories, moments of laughter interspersed with tears, victories bound in despair. And there they were again, flickering like candles, her children, lost but not gone. You can do it, Mommy. Their voices cheered, melding with the vibrant warmth that began to trickle back into the space. With every heartbeat, she felt the shadows retreat, pulling back like the tide. I'm coming. She shouted into the darkened hallway, pushed by an urgency now coursing through her veins. I will bring you home. Through thickening shadows, the darkness wavered, revealing yet another doorway more daunting than the last. She could hear the whispers mingling with the cries of children. Bracing herself, she flung the door wide open, the light flooded her vision, guiding her towards the vibrant memories that beckoned like a warm embrace. And there, at the end of the tunnel, lay her children, their faces beaming with joy, a sight that wrapped around her heart like a balm. Silly Mommy, Jake said, laughter echoing like music. We were never lost. A wave of warmth washed over Laura, flooding her heart with a clarity that drowned out the lingering dread. In that moment, she stood tall, the shadows fading, the truths she had buried rising up like moths fluttering to the light. I will never abandon you again. She yelled, stepping forward, breaking through the last veil of darkness. In an explosion of light, she surged toward them, wrapping them both in her arms, holding them tight. You're safe. She wept, the weight of years dissolving in their embrace. And for the first time in ages, Laura felt a flicker of hope, a belief that love could blossom anew from the darkest places, that perhaps the fears that once gripped her could transform into the strength she needed to not only face the terrors ahead but to guide her children toward light too. As they pulled away, she caught one last glimpse of the shadowy figure lingering at the edge, now mere wisps fading against the brightness. Goodbye, Laura whispered, finally free to let go. The dark whispers retreated, leaving nothing but laughter beneath the stars, a new beginning born from the ashes of despair. This was their home, one woven with love. And she was finally ready to embrace it. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these tales alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support. Let us keep the darkness at bay together.